35, move it in there, and then if you don't use it, we transfer that to next year, right? So that there's some way that we wanna save that money so that when Lewis and Clark comes online, we can absorb that hit for 2 or 3 years. So if we put this money in and we don't use it this year, then can we roll it into a CIP? How do we maintain that account?
I don't know where Debbie's at.
I have no idea.
No idea. Oh, she's right behind me.
How would we,
Well, it's kind of like they're extra, they have extra, that's where we've been putting any fund that has any extra is going into a CIP, and there is one for the detention center, I don't have one for public safety. We've never had an option for it, a need for it, but it is possible to set it up that way. This is how some of the departments fund a vehicle or something. That's how we fund some of their vehicles, as extra goes put into their CIPs, for vehicle, weapons. Detention center has one, we've just never had the ability to put any money in it.
so if we get to the 33% reserve, then we can legally take that money above the 33% and stick that into that CIP fund to cover that 2-year bump that we're probably gonna end, 2 or 3 year bump that we're gonna end up with.
Because we can't have more than 33% reserve, so by adding and spending as a transfer out, that covers that, takes that reserve down. You could even transfer more out than your excess 33%. You could transfer all your reserve out if you wanted to. That's just not a good idea.
And I think Brandon said that we've stayed in the black on our reserves all year, so that's from what he was able to say, so that was just, that's a good thing, that we haven't done that in a while, and, I think, what'd you say, there was 134?
Yeah, it appears to be the lowest month, but the way I understand the taxes are coming in, so that would boost those cash balance back up. I think we're at 135,000 right now in our cash. If I'm looking at that right, but I think so, because I sat down with the auditor and he went over it with me, so.
You're gonna run at 35, 30,
30.
35?
30 inmates, where last year was
Is that what your
35.
budget at, or is,
Yeah.
so if you get more, do you have, is
Yeah.
that an excess that we'll have also?
So you, basically it comes down to about $22,000 per inmate per year, so you can, figure if you got 4 inmates, you're right at about 100,000 there. So, 5, you keep going up. So, it'd be our goal to definitely keep that as high as we can, and hope that, these talks work out in the long run here that we're going into.
So if you're running at 35, what's your overflow number? 42? The max that you can hold?
Max is 46.
46. So you're figuring 11 of our own?
Well, I think we average around, I think it was 7 or 8, so.
That was kind of my question, I was wondering where your threshold was there.
7 or 8, we've gone down to 1. This year we've hit a point of 0, and then had 45 paying customers at the same time. But that quickly changes. That was I don't know what happened there, but it usually is right at that 7 or 8 number. Then it depends on commitments and things like that. So we always want to leave a little room for what happens in Broadwater County. But we've definitely filled the facility pretty full of other people paying to be there. So
Yeah, if you let the undersheriff and the captain go work patrol, they throw a whole bunch of people in jail too.
Right.
But, no, I think that, I think that I wish we would have done this in an aspect, would have done this back in that fiscal year, within 15, 16, I wish we would have had something in place that we looked at this in the same facet. Because I think we visualized about 1.2 million in that 15, 16 fiscal year. If we would have, to be able to look at that in an objective that way, I think then where we bounced it, we had the same thing that would have been money that came back. But we had I don't know, I'm not really sure why we got sideways as far as we have in that, and I think right now, I really like Brandon's idea of using, and Dave's been part of it, and so is the mayor and Bill Drocky and everything else. This hasn't been a single-handed conversation by any stretch of the means, but basing off numbers that we know are consistent and trying to balance it off or build it off of that is really kind of put things into perspective. We know this is where we're at, we know what we got. We don't have to look at the crystal ball and see what's gonna happen. We're basing on information we have right now. And I think that's gonna provide a better product at the end. And a simpler process, instead of spending 16 or 20 hours hashing out items that don't need to be. I think sometimes we get in the weeds a little too far, and
Yeah.
we don't need to do that, so.
So have you guys reached the agreement with the city then on the interlocal? Is that still ongoing?
It's still going, I'm not sure where that sits though.
We're, hopefully gonna have a printed document here, let's say tomorrow, I'll bring it up to you too, make sure that we didn't throw you under the bus.
And I think that in regards to that is, I think it's having it built into a time frame to where it's gonna allow, you know, when that, there's some built-in increases in that, and then it kinda get rid of some of the other language and stuff that was in there, make it a cleaner document, something similar to what the Gallatin County and Three Forks uses, if I'm correct, Mike?
Yes.
And it's a cleaner document, so it should move forward, and then, based upon election cycles, it still provides an opportunity for somebody to say, okay, I've got a whole bunch of things I gotta deal with, but this is still gonna be okay until we get back to it, and has some time frames built into it, so should be a better document.
Okay. Is it more than a year or?
I think it's 3, 4?
4 years actually,
Okay.
total with a 2-year, clause at the end to get it all fixed back
All
up.
right, so that eliminates some of the unknown. Good,
Yeah.
okay.
And it doesn't have to be rehashed every year. So, be similar to like our BOR contract, you know, it's a multi-year, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 5 years.
Yeah, and so,
With the increases.
the way you do it, and then you don't have to worry about it every year, so.
So, where do you put, confiscated vehicle storage? Where do you put that in? What part of your budget do you put that into?
I try to take it out of towing, but sometimes it comes out of contracted services
Okay.
as well. So we've, hopefully don't have as much as that. We've been really trying to get people to pay their tow bills. Unfortunately, if we have to sit on for a while, we have to pay that. And then we had like the one that sat in a siloed storage unit for almost 2 years that cost us some money. We got that out of there, and working on getting rid of that car. Go from there, and then we got 2 sitting on the side of the building.
We're down to one, we're down to one.
Oh, one now? One now?
So the one guy can't pick it up, you know, and that's the downfall between, you know, a seizure where you're seizing it for like a drug forfeiture type thing, where it's property subject to criminal forfeiture. You know, that's one thing, you know, that one doesn't necessarily need to be secured in an enclosed environment, such as one that's an article of evidence, such as the one that was in the silos. That was an evidence from a shooting. That has to be in an area where the weather can't get to it and everything else. And so that changes life. And thank God that doesn't happen very often, but it does happen, and we adapt and overcome to it when it does. So.
So what, your other part there is that the mills go up, that you figured that that's gonna be, that's not, you didn't figure the mills increasing all, you're keeping them the same as they were last year. So that'll be another part of stuff that we can roll into the CIP or.
Yeah, first,
To not spend that 155 as much as we can.
yeah, whatever it increases, keep the same amount of mills, and obviously it would increase, and we would still see that, but in our goal is to focus on this budget, and then that would stay in our cash, and get that up to 33%, then when this is obviously gonna take some time, some years, then when that hits that 33%, to start rolling that into CIPs, and then for our budget, because it's so big and so many different line items, we already know what we're gonna get for the previous year. This would basically be here's our budget, and then, recognize that a year behind, and I think it would help with the operations of all the county if that was available, an option, but understanding some people, I would love to be able to recognize that this year, but I think to hit our goals, I think this is the time to start that, so.
That's all I have.
Yep, I don't have anything else. I think working with Bill just help you out
Yeah, it's
Bill?
quite a bit.
Yeah.
He's been a lot of help.
Yeah.
And I actually sent him a text earlier today. I don't know if you guys have had much success trying to find people to be part of a focus group. I have had little to none, regardless of who I talk to, and so I haven't got one person to bite. Brandon, I know, has had some conversations. He hasn't had any success. The mayor has expressed his frustration trying to find people to be involved as well. So hopefully you guys have had luck, because I have not. And I have I've reached out to several spectrums.
Use your list.
Yeah, I've reached out to just a plethora of different people, and no one's saying, yeah, I'd love to do that. And so I'm kind of, I sent Bill a text saying, if you've got any other suggestions, I would love to hear them. Because I'm running out of options, and I don't. I was talking to Debbie about it a little bit. I thought about maybe putting something out in the newspaper. The downfall of that is I'm concerned that if you have somebody who wants to be involved for the aspect of trying to spend more time in the weeds, worried about things that we can't control, we don't need to spend more time identifying the problem. We know what it is. We gotta spend more time finding a solution. So I don't necessarily want a group of people who are gonna be sitting around talking about the problem. Let's figure out how to fix it. So I'm a little concerned with that, but I'm hoping Bill will give me something. Give me some tidbit of information, Bill, that I can. I just don't know if I'm presenting it wrong. I don't know. I just don't know. And I've had conversations with farmers and ranchers and business people, and I just can't get anybody to want to engage. So, which is alarming because we need that public input. So, yeah.
So, the next one I handed you is the 911 revenue and expenditures. And that's pretty simple. I didn't bring enough copies, I'm sorry for everybody on that one. It's not as big as our normal budget, so.
What changes happened at the state with 911 this year?
And I don't know of any,
Well, they took, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, I thought one of the bills is they took some of the funds, so they're going to, and put them, last session they created a PSAP certification process. So if your PSAP wasn't certified through the state, then you weren't eligible for 911 funds. Our PSAP was certified, but now they talked about, and I don't know if it passed, is taking part of those 911 funds, setting them aside to create a grant process for people to build up their next gen 911. And so, that seems to be a topic of conversation quite regularly, so I don't know if we've really made any progress in that.
Are your revenues down then from,
You know, I don't think, I don't.
They seem to be a little over, this year, what we projected, so.
And I think that might be with just the growth within the county, so, but I know that the telco companies were having a discussion about stuff as well. It's quite a conversation piece, but aren't you on that 911 committee?
As an alternate.
Oh, okay.
We did have a meeting yesterday, and that was one of the topics. And everybody who put in for a grant through that system actually was fully awarded.
Nice.
Yeah, so they're calling that a success, so they're gonna continue that some more. And, there's about $5 million extra that's been put into that account. And that is all I have at this point. But both were really good news.
So our 911, it seems like we've always got a little money left over, so our cash looks really good in that, account. And really, I'm just budgeting for a little bit more of what we are actually seeing this year than last year. And really, the expenditures haven't changed much, as you can see, or the revenue.
So when was the last payment that was done here on the,
It just came in, 30,000.
was it for the third quarter?
Yep, and so we haven't got the fourth quarter yet.
So we're still 100, we're still 43 away, 44 away. Okay.
And that pays for, some of the radio towers, the, Circuit CAD systems, the phone system, stuff like that anything needs to be replaced in there. I think we went over on a couple line items due to, a generator issue and then a plane crash, so. Oh, and I think we submitted that to insurance, so hopefully we can get a check back on that at some point if they decide to pay. So. Or was it a lightning strike? A lightning strike.
Lightning strike.
And then the plane crash knocked out
When
her.
it was a lightning strike, got the generator, then the phone took out the power.
Yeah, and then it did some damage when it took out the power to the generator though. And it was like a $4,000 bill or something. So.
That was odd, I got called by the two occupants of the plane, they both hired attorneys, I'm like, that's odd, but, okay, so, I'm not sure why, but, yeah, their attorneys both called me and, so, I'm imagining it's probably because of the power outage component, so, I would think, so.
Any questions? I have one more. This is search and rescues. The only big change, and I have to work, I'm sorry.
Right?
I have to work with Debbie on this one, is they have some money in their CIP that they would like to purchase some equipment with this year, and that's the last line item, so that's the big change. It's $16,780. They were 10,000 of that. They're looking at getting tracks for their side-by-side and a cab for the winter time. As you know, with the extreme weather we had this winter, they were out when everybody went home to help people, or try and get home, help people get home. And they were on snowmobiles, and we dealt with some people getting some minor frostbite, and extremely cold on the snowmobiles. So this is to protect our volunteers, and also a couple searches this year when the roads started opening up and there were snow, mud, and dry all at the same time. Didn't really work for a snowmobile, didn't really work for a four-wheeler, so I think our best option is tracks on this, so they can go over all that terrain at once. So the other part is they're looking to spend a couple thousand on a raft type rescue boat. And John, I wish John was here to explain that one a little better, but I'm sure he'd give me a better explanation than I can come up with, so. Slip them in.
Yeah, there's about 21 grand right now in cash.
Yeah, so they have the money, it's just kind of rolling that in to the revenue side. I wasn't sure how to do that, and I know Debbie's been busy, and I figured in our free time we can work together to get something up. So in interfund transfer on the revenue side, you'll see the 1733, which is not recognized last year, and that's where I put that to balance, so. From the CIP.
Sure, yeah, looks good. And it's a good plan. Hopefully we'll never, ever have that again, but I have a
hope
feeling
not.
that we will.
And I think they're still gonna have a conversation with, the trust board and some other grants, trying to figure out something on that jet boat, the big boat, not the little one. The little one's been worth its weight in gold here lately, this year. We've utilized that, a couple different times now, especially on that river. So that's been a great purchase, but that big boat of ours is, it's been around. So I think it's got 36 years under its belt, or 37 years, and parts aren't made anymore. And so it's time. But we've been talking about it for the last few years, and I think we're going to continue to move forward, try to figure out what's going to work best and how to go about that. But I know they've checked with the trust board and some other grant and funding options to do that. So because that's going to be about 100 and be pretty close to 100 and probably $110,000. So it's going to take a little bit.
Okay. That brings up a question that I don't know. We're talking about CIP for search and rescue. Is that something that we consider when we're doing our road policy, that CIP type stuff for that?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and Jerry sent an email wondering if he could get what we have at this point. I know you guys were talking before the meeting.
Yeah.
I think that's important, so, yeah,
there you go.
absolutely.
Great.
We might have some odd requests in there, but with one of the things that we start talking about, that's, especially with the growth in that lake area, there's going to be quite a populace of folks that are playing in our waterways, and at some point, it might be advantageous of us to look at having some water patrol. As much water as we have no presence on it, and that is kind of dangerous. So it might be something we look at and see if there's. We've had a lot of issues on the river. We've had issues on the lake, and we just had no way to be out there and kind of tackle some of those things.
Is Fish, Wildlife and Parks kind of doing some of
They
that?
try, but and that changed back in the 17 session as well, where you know, when they went in and asked for a budget increase, they said, yeah, use the, I don't remember what fund it was, which is all about, biology. So, you know, they gotta spend 14 hours a week doing biology, and no one, and in that, there's no enforcement. They cannot do any enforcement actions, for those 14 hours of the week. So, that's caused a problem as well. But we've all seen it. You get out on a Sunday or Saturday at silos, and it's a nightmare. And, you know, unfortunately, you can't take the search and rescue board out there because it's a search and rescue. And it's, you know, wouldn't be very good if we come up and start jamming people for doing stupid stuff, and it said search and rescue on the side, and it was actually a bunch of sheriffs saying, oh, we got you. Somebody might get offended by that and sue us and everything else, so, and probably create bad case law, so we don't wanna do that.
What about the DOR side of it? Are they interested in enforcement on the water?
Well, that's fishing, they don't have,
Yeah.
they don't have jurisdiction.
Just the ground?
Just around
the lake.
Shore around.
Yeah.
Definitely water.
Yeah. So, that's just something down the road, but it's a busy area. Anything else?
No.
Thank you, guys.
Well, have a great afternoon.
Awesome.
Still want me?
Sure. Might as well, you're here.
I am, I'm sorry I'm late. I promise I'm not trying to avoid you.
Okay, yeah, there's some things I need to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you. Allison, was it something you said?
What? I don't know. I always wonder that. Apparently I'm either not very exciting or I offended someone. Or both, maybe. So my budgets, this is what I have right now. I know one of the lingering questions we had after the last get-together was the large increase in the extension agent contract, which is directly tied to the clerk and recorder's salary. And we did get an answer from Debbie, was able to help with that. And that was an email. Did everyone see that? Or do you want me to? Okay. Did you see it, Mike?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, I can just read what she wrote. So it says the big increase that year was due to a lawsuit by union and the findings that the deputies' salaries were not in compliance with MCA in relation to the sheriff's wages. So rather than taking money away from the deputies, all of the elected officials' base increased by $4 plus an hour to fit within the deputies' existing wages. This had to be done to make things right with the union and MCA. So then that in turn, since my contract is based off of the clerk and recorder's salary, that in turn increased that
Okay.
contract. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's why that happened. And there's really probably no going back from that. Because obviously it made things right with the union and whatnot. But that's why that big increase happened. So I've been playing with numbers a little bit, and this is kind of what I have of today. And this is probably looks like the year that things go in the hole, unfortunately, based on that. And really it comes down to that big jump that we had back in 2015. The other question I had, and I hadn't heard, if there was a COLA increase. Has that been decided yet? And I missed it.
Nothing's been decided yet, but the county compensation board agreed on a 3.9.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We don't know if that's going to be something we can do, but it is the goal that's been set. And we'll do everything we can to realize that because of freezing last year.
Okay.
Even with the two years CPI added together, the 3.9 still doesn't meet that CPI. Which means everyone, even with 3.9, is still going down.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so, obviously Debbie has to, so the number's in red and Debbie's isn't in red, but, Debbie has to work her magic on the salary numbers. I think I figured like a 2 or 2.5% there, just as kind of a rough estimate, but obviously those are not, anything in red is not set in stone because Debbie has to do it. So obviously those are things that I don't have much influence on as far as changing without changing personnel. And so what I did was just on the blue numbers, which I kind of view as the more discretionary, I did make budget cuts again, and it was just under 4%, based on the numbers I have there, is what I cut in the discretionary funds. Not including salary or the extension contract, and the extension contract will go up with clerk and recorder salary again. And as you can see, it doesn't look good in the end. So I'm open to suggestions.
Along with our other requests that we've received, so the memo we sent out, Debbie authored it, and it was sent out jointly with the commission, states that any special requests, we will compile all of those. At the end of June is the deadline. Into July, we'll make a decision and let you know. Between now and then, your budget has to balance. And what I would like to do as part of that special request is put at least another $500,000 to your budget, if we can. That would be roughly 8,000, hopefully 8,500, and hopefully help bridge that gap for you. Plus, give you a little bit more, because you haven't been paying any utilities. We've been covering those in total,
Right.
which is not the case for other departments. But when you do move to the annex, there's gonna have to be a budget item, budget line item, and I think it would be best to use that $500,000, the difference. Only a certain amount would be needed to realize the salary difference. The rest could be used to realize the utilities.
Yeah, and thank you. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I did have a note over here, and I didn't mention it, that there are some unknowns that are not figured into this
Right,
for that building that will potentially increase the cost.
yeah.
So you said the special request, so $500,000 would be, what was the amount again? I'm sorry.
Roughly 8,000 to 8,500 per year to start. And so if, unless you have a counter proposal, I'd like to put that on our list of special requests.
Okay.
But I'm certainly open to ideas that you have as well.
Yeah, and, I've been thinking about it, and we talked a lot about it at the last get-together about ideas, and a lot of them are, things, I have been working on grants. Unfortunately, those don't often help with things like the salary and whatnot. Thinking about different ways I could charge for services, but I really don't do a lot of services that are gonna charge and be able to, I think, make it up a difference. That would be substantial. It's just not what my department does. And really, I feel like at this point, I've cut back again. And I've cut it every year I've been here with the discretionary funds, and at this point, to get it to balance, it would have to come out of personnel. Unfortunately, which would mean we're losing our benefits, and I probably would lose an employee. My guess would be over that. So that's what I've been trying to avoid, but if you look at the difference, it's substantial enough that even if I took away some of my discretionary funds right now are knocked down to about $9,300, a little bit more than that, but the difference in the expenses of revenue is $7,000, so that's takes it all away.
Right.
So
And that's kind of where my thinking is at, is $500,000 puts you to rights.
and that would probably be enough to make a difference, to make it balanced for sure. I think we could do that. Yeah. And we'll just kind of have to see on the unknowns and see how we can put those in there.
Right.
So, because we live pretty frugally. The other thing I didn't put in there, just because of the building, is this year we did have rent because of losing the meeting space. I didn't budget anything for that in hopes by this fall, when we kind of get geared up for meeting, we.
Are you planning,
okay?
let's say, if you move it, do you plan on renting meeting space again?
Hopefully not. If we are able to convert that front area into a meeting space, we shouldn't have to.
I mean, to other folks.
Oh, I guess we hadn't talked about that. We hadn't talked about that.
I just think,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something you're interested in, or.
Yeah, it might depend on how it's set up and access to our offices. It was nice in the ambulance building because the meeting room had a separate entrance from our offices. So I think we might just have to kind of see. I did think about it, but maybe we'll just have to see how it all gets set up and whatnot.
That becomes a little bit more difficult in a county building because this is the people's building.
Right.
How do we charge? I mean, certainly asking for enough to cover electricity, you know, that kind of thing, heat. But how do we charge the people for the use of their own building? Becomes a little bit more difficult.
Mhm.
But I like where you're thinking, you know, because we have to do some out-of-the-box thinking.
Mhm.
So, yeah, there are options. We just don't know what they are yet.
Yeah, and I think there's maybe little ways kind of like that. I mean, we charged for the ambulance building over there, but it was so minimal. I mean, I think maybe we got like $50 a year from everything. You know, it doesn't add a lot. I mean, yeah, it's something. You know, I don't want to, but where I'm at, my budget, I feel like it's got to be something a little more substantial, and just like some of the other things that I've tossed around, maybe, you know, few services are just going to be little drops in the bucket, unfortunately, but there are probably just little things we can do that will help. Yeah. So, maybe we'll put all of our heads together.
Yeah, thinking about, I don't know, if you wanted to, not even you, but if somebody wanted to do a workshop,
Right.
then we could rent that space. I would think, not necessarily you, but say,
Mhm. Like if they were charging a fee.
what's that?
If they were charging a fee, is that what you're thinking?
Exactly,
Yeah.
so financial
Mhm.
services, somebody wants to do a retirement planning,
Mhm.
then I think we could rent that space
Mhm.
to them because they're charging anyway.
Mhm.
So that is that's gonna be a
Yeah.
nice meeting space, that might be something we wanna start looking at, yeah,
Mhm.
it's a good idea.
Yeah, it might be worth looking into.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if we go into, since we haven't really started working on the building yet, going into the mindset is we want to make that so that the public or whoever could access it or use it in off hours. And with that in mind, and designing the space to make sure that the offices are, you know, able to be shut off and whatnot. I mean, I think if we went into it with that mindset, we'd be fine.
Yeah,
Um,
and it looks like it will be this fall, so it's not gonna be in the next 2 weeks.
yeah, and that's okay with me. Fall is actually better.
Yeah.
Hey,
You got a few
it's almost
things
like you have
on
something
your
on
plate
your
right
mind.
now.
Yeah, so that is totally fine. As I said before, that, you know, get the ambulances in there and get them set up, and then worry about us, and we'll be fine. We're doing okay down here for now, and our meetings have really slowed down. They slowed down in the summer, which, and as we talked before, that's kind of what it's hurt us the most. And so, if we can be in place by the fall, kind of beginning of the school year, or beginning of the 4-H year, I think we'll be all right.
Excellent, thank you.
Yep, we're not in a hurry right now.
All right,
Just trying to keep heads above water. For the site. So, other questions for me?
I don't know.
Hey, who carried that lunch for the egg roll thing?
We actually used Matty Moose.
They did a very good job.
They did. That was the first time we've used them. We got the tip from someone
MBM?
else. That might be who it was. Yeah, that they had used them, and so she did a nice job.
She does a very
Yeah.
good job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was very reasonable. I was impressed. So we would use her again in a heartbeat, or probably will use her again. Mhm.
That was a great presentation. I think everybody enjoyed it.
Thank you. We enjoyed it too. Yeah, I learned a lot as well. All right, yeah, we keep running into people and we keep talking about it, so it's usually a good sign.
There you go. And we got credits, right?
We got credits, yeah, we had a grant for that one, so,
Nice.
yeah.
Thanks, Allison.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Allison. Montana Magazine and
He's a cute fellow, isn't he?
a letter from
I'll
Lewis
take
and
it
Clark
to Sharon.
National Forest for a decision memo for the Willow Creek vegetation area. Debbie's memo, a receipt from Bill Flyner. Oh, the floodplain from Great West.
Oh.
We'll have to have this on the agenda next week.
Okay.
Do we have to have an agenda out tonight?
No, tomorrow.
Tomorrow, okay.
Yeah,
And what time is union negotiation tomorrow?
We say 9.
I think we said 9 or 8:30.
And
For some reason, 8:30 popped in my head.
we should
The minute
plan,
was 8:30 because I think Erin said she can't make 8.
yeah. Do we need to meet with our team a few minutes early?
Yeah. Well, I do have starting at 9, but, yeah,
Do we all need to be
I think
early?
so.
Okay,
Yeah, 8:30.
all right.
So does anybody have anything else?
I do just 2 real quick things. One is the good neighbor that Steve talked about yesterday at the meeting.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is the agenda, if one of you is available. The 14th, we don't have to go, but the 14th is the Board of Crime Control meeting, so that's where I'm gonna go. And that is the appeal, for all those victims.
I think I have to go to MSU that
Yeah.
day.
and
Okay.
God, I'll swap you.
I'm like that.
Says the grizzly.
I'm at emergency services meeting that day, so.
All right, well, I will give a full report. That room's gonna be full from people around the state,
I'm sure it
so,
will be.
yeah. The only other thing I wanted to, say is that Mike and I traveled together to the meeting yesterday for MCA. We do have to disclose that. I learned probably more about Broadwater County history than I have since reading the Broadwater bygones. So thank you. I enjoyed our drive very much. It was really good information. I won't share any of the stories.
Don't divulge any of those.
Yeah, change the names to protect the innocent.
That's right. And then we'll catch up on maintenance, trust board, hospital district board next week.
Health, public health too.
Oh, and public health, okay,
She asked for an extension because she was gone, Diane's gone this week.
all right.
So they've all had their vacations for the year.
Yes, sir.
Just got a quick question. We missed the, notice that you had a conference call meeting, last week with SJS. Do you have a summary of that meeting?
That was basically, she had some people looking at the business that wanted some information on the contract with the county and the recreation area. And we don't know where it's going from there, whether they're gonna, they were looking at her business and we're looking at if the contract went with the business and what the provisions of the contract were. So basically, we talked with them and Sharon, and then we sent her a copy of that concessionaire. We sent them a copy of the concessionaire's contract.
Okay.
And then no decision was made on anything. It's pretty much, I guess it's pretty much all in her hands what she does with the business.
Oh, all right. So it basically was just a discussion about the concessionaire contract?
Yeah, basically just an informational meeting for prospective buyers.
Okay, because it was originally earlier last fall, early January sometime, there was a request to move forward with a bidding process. So is that kind of part of that, for that?
We haven't done anything with that.
Conditions of-
I
Okay.
think that if we're gonna do that, we're probably gonna have
So
to
you don't
start on
mind
that
me
as soon as we
taking
get
them
done
for a
with
minute
budget,
and making copies?
like September, because
Okay,
that's
yeah.
about when she's done for the year.
Okay, just kind of, just curious where that was, sir.
And I don't know, where's the master plan? Is BOR gonna, how do we handle that master plan?
There's not really much for us to do, so there's a Citizens Advisory Council, and they put that together. They worked with,
MSU,
MSU and Robert Pecha and Associates and BOR. And so right now, it's really kind of in BOR's hands. They've put some money together in their budget to help get the engineering done. What that engineering will do is show phases. So phase 1 is this, phase 2 is this, phase 3 is this. With each phase, there will be, it will take at least this amount of time, it'll take this amount of money, so that if we do wanna tackle phase 1, then we work with whatever partners we can find and work on phase 1, get that done, and then we tackle phase 2.
okay.
Yeah, so,
But BOR would have to approve the master plan as a whole, right? And then that would be a document that anyone involved would have to work off of that master plan,
right, Yeah.
including a new concessionaire if there was.
exactly,
Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
yeah.
Okay, so we will adjourn if there's nothing else. 443.